There's something we all experience at different times in our lives. Those moments where you wonder why they never call or text first. You feel a little left out, a little invisible, like you're the one who's always giving and never receiving. I want to acknowledge how painful that can be. It's easy to get stuck in that place of wondering, am I not enough, or why am I always the one reaching out? But here's the truth. It's not about you. And today we're going to talk about what you can do when you're in that space, because the power is always in your hands. Before we dive in, I just want to take a quick moment to invite you to join this community. If you're finding value in what we're sharing, I'd love for you to take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. And if this message resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might need to hear it today. Together, we're building a space where authenticity, vulnerability, and growth can thrive. Thank you for being here. Let's get started. We all carry expectations in our relationships, often without even realizing it. From friendships to romantic partnerships to family bonds, there's an unspoken agreement that if we invest our time, love, and energy into someone, they should return the favor in kind. We give, we care, we reach out, and in doing so, we build this quiet, invisible contract in our minds. If I do this, they'll do that. The problem is that expectations, though natural, often lead to disappointment. We expect people to think of us first, to prioritize us, to show up when we need them the most. But when that doesn't happen, we begin to feel undervalued, unseen, and sometimes even hurt. What I want to ask is, why do we hold on to these expectations? Why do we create these invisible weights we carry around in our hearts, waiting for others to meet a standard that we've set without ever really asking if they're capable or willing to meet it? The truth is, we cannot control how other people show up in our lives. People have their own lives, their own struggles, and their own ways of relating to others. And just because someone doesn't meet the expectations we've set for them, doesn't mean they don't care. It simply means they might not have the capacity or the awareness to meet those needs in the way we hoped. When we release the burden of these expectations, we free ourselves. We let go of the need to measure our worth based on the actions of others. It's about choosing peace over frustration. It's about choosing to stop tying our happiness to the behavior of people who might not even know they've let us down. By releasing these expectations, we create space for healthier, more genuine connections. We can appreciate people for who they are rather than for what we expect them to be. Now, releasing expectations doesn't mean giving up on your relationships or becoming indifferent. And it doesn't mean lowering your standards or settling for less than you deserve. Instead, it's about removing the pressure, both from yourself and from others. When we release expectations, we allow people to show up in their own way, at their own pace, without the weight of our unspoken demands. And in return, we can also show up for ourselves without feeling the constant burden of needing others to meet our needs. The freedom in releasing expectations is the freedom to love others without strings attached. It's the freedom to offer your time, energy, and care because you want to, not because you expect something in return. When you free yourself from the need for others to meet your expectations, you free yourself from disappointment. You no longer measure your value against what someone else does or doesn't. Instead, you learn to value yourself for who you are, not for what anyone else gives you. And that, my friends, is true freedom. Letting go of expectations doesn't mean you're giving up on the relationships that matter. It simply means that you're learning to love and care for yourself first, and not to hinge your happiness on how others behave. It's not about closing your heart off. It's about protecting it. It's about understanding that you can love others without needing them to be perfect. You can care deeply for someone, but not rely on them to define your worth. And when you do this, when you let go of that burden, you'll start to see the shift. You'll begin to feel lighter, more at peace. You'll be able to appreciate the people who show up in your life for who they are, without needing them to meet a standard that they might never be able to. And most importantly, you'll start to realize that you are enough just as you are, with or without the validation of others. The right people will show up in your life, not because you've asked them to, but because they choose to, and because your worth isn't tied to their actions. Releasing the burden of expectations is an act of self-love. It's an act of courage, It's an act of grace. And it is, above all, an act of freedom. When we feel hurt or overlooked by someone, the natural response is to build walls. It's a defense mechanism, a way to protect our hearts from further pain. We think, if I don't let them in, they can't hurt me. It feels like the safest option in the moment. But what we don't always realize is that by building these walls, we aren't just protecting ourselves, we're also keeping out the very things we crave: connection, understanding, and closeness. Resentment in this case becomes our shield. It allows us to hold on to the belief that we've been wronged, and it's often justified. We begin to justify our anger, our hurt, and our disillusionment by telling ourselves, if they cared, they would have done this differently. And yet, the longer we hold on to resentment, the more it distances us from the people who matter to us. What happens when we choose resentment over vulnerability, though, is that we stop giving others the opportunity to truly see us. We hide behind our anger or frustration, thinking it protects us, but in reality, it keeps us isolated. Vulnerability is the exact opposite. It's the choice to lean into the discomfort, to open up about our hurt and our needs, even when it feels risky. Vulnerability requires courage. It asks us to trust that we are worthy of being seen for who we are, imperfections and all, and that by showing up as our authentic selves, we invite the possibility of deeper connection. When we choose vulnerability, we allow ourselves to be seen. It's not about demanding an apology or expecting someone to change. It's about giving them a window into our hearts so that they can understand us more fully. This doesn't mean we immediately become open and vulnerable with everyone, especially if trust has been broken. But in those moments where we feel overlooked, neglected, or unheard, vulnerability becomes our way of showing up with authenticity. It's about acknowledging our feelings and expressing them without the need for the other person to meet us halfway first. We choose to lead with our hearts instead of our pride. The beauty of vulnerability is that it's not about being perfect. It's not about having all the answers or knowing exactly how to fix a situation. It's about saying, I'm hurt and here's how I feel. And by doing so, we create the space for others to respond with empathy and understanding. Vulnerability isn't about weakness. It's the strongest form of connection we can offer. It's about showing that we're human, that we're not immune to pain, and that despite that pain, we are still open to the possibility of connection. What happens when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable is profound. The walls that resentment builds start to crumble. The distance between us and others begins to shrink. We let go of the need to be perfect, to protect ourselves at all costs. And in that space, true connection happens. The people who care about us will meet us with compassion. And even if they don't fully understand, they'll see the effort we've made to show up as ourselves. We give them a chance to respond, not out of obligation, but out of genuine desire to care for us. Choosing vulnerability over resentment doesn't mean you won't get hurt. It doesn't mean that people won't disappoint you. But what it does mean is that you're giving yourself the freedom to be real, to express your needs, and to ask for what you deserve. And when you do that, you release the grip that resentment has on your heart. Instead of carrying the weight of unspoken frustration, you open the door to healing. You stop letting resentment dictate your relationships and allow vulnerability to guide you towards deeper, more authentic connections. In choosing vulnerability, we reclaim our power. It's not about waiting for others to change or meet our expectations. It's about choosing to show up as our true selves, even when it's hard. It's about saying, I'm here, I'm hurting, and I'm open to the possibility that things can be different. Vulnerability invites love, empathy, and connection in a way that resentment never will. It's the courageous act of stepping into the unknown with the belief that no matter the outcome, we are worthy of the love and understanding that we so deeply desire. Setting boundaries is one of the most loving things we can do for ourselves, but it's also one of the hardest. Many of us have been taught that boundaries are selfish or that we should always put others' needs ahead of our own. But the truth is, boundaries are not walls that keep people out. They are markers that define where we begin and where we end. They help us protect our energy, our time, and our emotional well-being. And most importantly, boundaries allow us to show up as the best version of ourselves in our relationships. Because when we respect our own needs, we can fully give from a place of authenticity, not depletion. When we fail to set boundaries, we often end up feeling resentful, drained, or overextended. We may feel like we're constantly giving to others without receiving anything in return, and that leads to frustration. We might find ourselves saying yes when we really mean no, agreeing to things that don't align with our values or priorities simply because we're afraid of disappointing others or being seen as difficult. But in doing this, we lose a piece of ourselves. We begin to operate from a place of obligation instead of choice, and over time, that erodes our sense of self-worth. Setting boundaries is not about rejecting others or cutting them off. It's about creating space for what matters most, our own peace, happiness, and well-being. It's about communicating clearly and lovingly what we need, what we're able to give, and what we're not willing to tolerate. Boundaries aren't about controlling others or making demands. They are about being clear with ourselves and others about how we want to be treated and what we need to feel safe, valued, and respected. But here's where it gets tricky. Boundaries require clarity. It's not enough to have an internal understanding of what we need. We have to be able to communicate it to others in a way that is both firm and compassionate. When we set boundaries, we're not asking for permission or approval from others. We're simply stating our needs in a way that honors ourselves. And this is where love comes in. Setting a boundary is an act of self-love, but it's also an act of love toward others. When we are clear about what we need, we give others the opportunity to honor and respect us in a way that nurtures the relationship. Without boundaries, there's confusion, frustration, and unspoken resentment that fester. But with boundaries, we create a space where healthy, thriving relationships can grow. A boundary might look like telling someone that you need alone time to recharge. It could mean saying no to an invitation because it doesn't align with your values or priorities. It could be asking someone to respect your time by not calling or texting late at night. Whatever the boundary is, the key is communicating it with love and clarity. This doesn't mean being harsh or inflexible. It means being honest and respectful. You're simply saying, this is what I need in order to be my best self, and this is how I can show up for you from that place. But what happens when we set boundaries and others don't respect them? This is where love and clarity are even more important. Setting a boundary is only effective if we are willing to uphold it. It's not enough to just say, I need this, and then let others walk all over our limits. We have to be firm in our boundaries and hold ourselves accountable to them. Sometimes that means having difficult conversations, standing our ground, and reaffirming our needs when others try to push past them. This doesn't make us bad people. It makes us people who know our worth and aren't afraid to protect it. The truth is, people will often test our boundaries. They'll want us to bend, to give in, to sacrifice our needs for theirs. But when we stay grounded in our clarity and love, we teach others how to treat us. We show them that we are worthy of respect and that our time, energy, and emotions are valuable. And while some people might struggle with our boundaries, others will respect them and will appreciate the space they create for authentic connection. Setting boundaries also means having the courage to let go of relationships that are harmful or draining. It's not about being harsh or rejecting people outright. It's about recognizing when a relationship has become toxic or unbalanced and knowing when to step back for the sake of your own well-being. Sometimes love means knowing when to say goodbye. Sometimes love means prioritizing your own needs and mental health over the comfort or expectations of others. Boundaries are not about control or manipulation. They are about self-preservation and self-respect. When we set boundaries with love and clarity, we create healthier, more fulfilling relationships because we are showing up as our authentic selves. We are teaching others how to love us in a way that honors who we are and what we need. And most importantly, we are giving ourselves the gift of peace and the ability to love others from a place of abundance, not exhaustion. So the next time you feel the pull to overextend yourself, to say yes when you really want to say no, remember that boundaries are a tool for your own well-being. They are an act of love, not just for you, but for the people you care about. When you set boundaries with love and clarity, you're not pushing others away. You're creating space for more meaningful, authentic connections. And that is a gift we can all give ourselves and those around us. In life, we often find ourselves overwhelmed by circumstances, situations, and people that we cannot control. It's a natural human tendency to want to change things, to fix problems, to make situations work the way we want them to. But the reality is there will always be aspects of our lives that lie beyond our control. We can't control other people's actions, their words, or their choices. We can't control the weather, the economy, or unexpected challenges that come our way. And yet, it's easy to get caught in a cycle of trying to force things to go our way, often leading to frustration and burnout. The key to finding peace in this chaotic world is shifting our focus. Instead of trying to control what is beyond our reach, we need to focus on what we can control: ourselves, our responses, our mindset, and our choices. Focusing on what we can control allows us to take our power back. It reminds us that while we can't dictate everything that happens to us, we can control how we respond to those things. And that, my friends, is where the true power lies. When we focus on what we can control, we stop spending our energy on things that drain us. We stop giving mental space to situations or people that are out of our hands. And instead, we channel that energy into things we can influence. This might mean focusing on our own growth, our health, or our relationships with those who respect and support us. It could mean setting boundaries that protect our well-being or making intentional choices that align with our values. The more we focus on what we can control, the more empowered we feel. We stop feeling like victims of our circumstances and start seeing ourselves as active participants in shaping our own lives. Focusing on what we can control also means taking responsibility for our own emotions and reactions. It's easy to blame external circumstances or other people for how we feel, but the truth is that we are the ones who ultimately decide how to respond. Life is not about what happens to us, but about how we choose to engage with it. When we shift our mindset and focus on our own reactions, we realize that we are in control of how we feel, how we process challenges, and how we show up in the world. If someone treats us poorly, we don't have to allow their behavior to define our mood or sense of self-worth. We can choose to respond with grace, with understanding, or with boundaries. We can choose not to let their actions disrupt our inner peace. Another aspect of focusing on what we can control is setting realistic expectations for ourselves. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that we should be perfect, that we should have everything figured out, that we should always be doing more. But when we put too much pressure on ourselves, we set ourselves up for failure and disappointment. Instead, we need to focus on progress, not perfection. We need to remember that growth is a journey, not a destination. When we focus on what we can control, we start to set achievable goals that are aligned with our abilities and our values. We stop comparing ourselves to others and start measuring our success based on our own standards. This gives us the space to celebrate our victories, however small, and to embrace our imperfections as part of the process. In times of uncertainty or hardship, focusing on what we can control also brings us a sense of stability. When life feels out of control, we often look for things to anchor us. We seek out the familiar, the things that we know we can manage. This could be something as simple as creating a daily routine that nurtures our mental and physical health, practicing mindfulness or meditation, or engaging in creative activities that bring us joy. These small actions might seem insignificant, but they are the foundation upon which we build resilience. They give us a sense of agency in a world that often feels unpredictable. When we focus on what we can control, we create a sense of order in our lives, no matter how chaotic the external world may be. It's also important to recognize that focusing on what we can control doesn't mean ignoring the things that are out of our hands. It doesn't mean pretending that the challenges we face don't matter or that we shouldn't care about things we can't change. But it does mean being intentional about where we invest our time and energy. We don't waste precious mental space on things that are beyond us. Instead, we channel our energy into the areas where we can make a difference. This could be investing in our personal growth, building stronger connections with the people who matter most, or pursuing our passions. We shift our focus from the things that drain us to the things that fill us up. The beauty of focusing on what we can control is that it empowers us to act. It gives us the clarity and confidence to take positive steps forward, even in the face of uncertainty. It allows us to stop waiting for permission or for the perfect circumstances. We realize that we have the power to shape our own experience. By taking ownership of our choices, we begin to see that even in challenging times, there's always something we can do to move closer to the life we desire. Whether it's practicing gratitude, cultivating mindfulness, or simply taking one small step forward each day, we can always control how we move through the world. So the next time you find yourself feeling overwhelmed by circumstances, remember that you always have a choice. You may not be able to control the outcome, but you can control your mindset, your actions, and your response. By focusing on what you can control, you reclaim your sense of power and agency. You stop letting life happen to you and start taking charge of your own journey. And in doing so, you unlock the ability to navigate even the most difficult situations with strength, grace, and purpose. Growth is often seen as a destination we work towards, something we achieve once we have mastered a skill, healed from a past trauma, or reached a certain point in our lives. But growth, in its truest form, isn't a linear path or a fixed goal. It's a continuous process, a journey that requires us to lean into the discomfort, the uncertainty, and the messiness of being human. Growth happens in the moments when we choose to step outside of our comfort zones, when we embrace the lessons that come with failure, and when we commit to evolving into a version of ourselves that is more aligned with our values, dreams, and potential. Leaning into your own growth means actively choosing to show up for yourself, even when it feels challenging. It means acknowledging that growth is often uncomfortable. So it isn't always about taking giant leaps forward, but about the small, consistent actions we take every day that compound over time. The key is to embrace the process of growth without judgment, without the need to rush, and without the pressure of perfection. Growth is not about becoming something you're not. It's about uncovering and nurturing the fullest expression of who you already are. One of the most important aspects of leaning into your growth is understanding that it often requires letting go of old patterns, beliefs, and behaviors that no longer serve you. We are all products of our past experiences, and these experiences shape the way we see ourselves and the world around us. But sometimes we hold on to outdated narratives about who we are, what we are capable of, and what we deserve. We cling to limiting beliefs like I'm not good enough or I'll never be successful because they are familiar and comfortable. But if we want to grow, we have to be willing to challenge these beliefs and create new, empowering stories about ourselves. Leaning into your own growth means being willing to face the parts of yourself that you may have been avoiding, the fears, the insecurities, the vulnerabilities that make you feel uncomfortable. It means embracing those parts with compassion and understanding rather than trying to push them away. Growth doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens when we confront our shadows and make peace with the parts of ourselves that we'd rather not acknowledge. By doing so, we allow ourselves to heal and evolve in ways that would not be possible if we remained in denial or tried to suppress our emotions. We begin to see that growth isn't about eradicating our flaws, but about accepting them, learning from them, and integrating them into our journey. To lean into your growth is to release the need for instant gratification and to embrace patience. In a world that demands quick results and instant fixes, it's easy to become frustrated with the pace of personal growth, but growth takes time. It's a slow, steady unfolding that can't be rushed. Just as a tree takes years to grow tall and strong, so too does your growth. You won't see immediate results in every area of your life, and that's okay. What matters is the consistent effort you put in, the willingness to show up even when you don't see immediate rewards. Progress isn't always visible on the surface, but if you trust the process and commit to your growth, the changes will be undeniable over time. Leaning into your own growth also means being open to feedback and learning from others. Growth doesn't happen in isolation. We learn from the people around us, whether they are mentors, friends, or strangers. It's easy to get defensive when we receive criticism or advice, but if we approach feedback with an open heart and mind, it becomes a valuable tool for our growth. Sometimes the people closest to us can offer insights that we can't see ourselves. Leaning into your growth means being willing to hear what others have to say without judgment. and using that information to move forward. It's about recognizing that we are never finished products, but constantly evolving beings, and that growth is a collaborative process shaped by the people we meet and the experiences we have. Another crucial aspect of leaning into your growth is learning to embrace failure as part of the process. Too often, we view failure as something to be avoided at all costs. We fear making mistakes because we believe they reflect poorly on us, that they somehow prove we're not capable or worthy of success. But failure is not the opposite of growth. It is a vital part of it. Every time we fail, we are given an opportunity to learn, to adjust, and to come back stronger. It's in the moments of failure that we truly discover our resilience, our creativity, and our ability to adapt. So leaning into your growth means reframing failure not as something to be feared, but as a necessary step on the road to success. As you lean into your own growth, you will inevitably encounter discomfort. Growth is messy. It's not always neat, clean, or comfortable, but discomfort is a sign that you are expanding, that you are pushing past the boundaries of who you once were and becoming someone new. It's easy to resist discomfort. It's tempting to avoid situations that make us feel uncertain or vulnerable. But if we want to grow, we have to lean into that discomfort, understanding that it is a sign that we are on the edge of transformation. The more we embrace the discomfort that comes with growth, the more we develop the resilience and courage to face whatever challenges come our way. Leaning into your growth also means letting go of comparison. It's easy to look at others and think they're further ahead than I am, or I'll never be as successful as them. But comparing your growth to someone else's is a recipe for frustration and self-doubt. Each person's journey is unique, and we are all at different stages of our evolution. Instead of measuring your growth against others, measure it against where you started. Celebrate the progress you've made, no matter how small. And remember that growth is not a race. It's a personal journey. Be kind to yourself as you navigate this path, knowing that you are doing the best you can with the resources and knowledge you have at this moment. Leaning into your growth is a lifelong commitment. It's not something that happens once and is then checked off a list. It's a continuous ongoing process that evolves with us as we move through life. The more we lean into our growth, the more we become comfortable with the unknown, the uncertain, and the ever-changing nature of life. And in doing so, we create space for transformation, for joy, and for the deep fulfillment that comes from living authentically. Growth is not something that happens to us. It's something we actively choose day after day with intention and courage. So as you continue your journey, remember that leaning into your own growth is the greatest act of self-love you can offer yourself. It's about embracing who you are becoming, trusting the process, and knowing that every step, every challenge, and every lesson is an opportunity for you to step more fully into your power. So if they never call or text you first, don't get discouraged. Instead, do this. Choose vulnerability, set healthy boundaries, focus on what you can control, and above all, lean into your own growth. Remember, your worth isn't tied to anyone else's actions. You are whole, you are enough, and you have the power to create the relationships and life that fulfill you. Stay true to yourself, and everything else will follow. Thank you.